It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. I know what you're thinking, another podcast episode live from the conference. But while I'm here, I have to take advantage of some of the most amazing people that I have an opportunity to meet. So today I'm here with my dear friend, Phil Barth. Now, there's a lot of interesting things about this guy. His focus is primarily helping people enjoy their lives, live their best life, and to help them fry their chickens, which we'll learn more about in just a few minutes. But I am so privileged to have Phil here with me today. Phil, how are things going?
Going good. I got to hear this great opening keynote by this guy, Lee Henson. You might have heard of him.
I never heard of him before in my life, but I'll tell you what, the keynote was amazing. It was pretty fun. We did a whole vanilla ice thing. We talked about that on Monday. It's absolutely amazing when you come to these conferences just to be surrounded by good people.
Yep.
So what I can tell you is a couple of things real quick about Phil I thought were awesome. One, he's the only person in the world I've ever met in person who's been on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on TV. I thought that was pretty cool. And even though he didn't win $1 million on the show, he's still a millionaire in my book. So tell us, Phil, tell us more about, so what is this whole thing about frying chickens? Tell us what that's all about.
So, a lot of times we get advice: ignore those critics on the outside, ignore the people that are dragging you down. But we don't always think about the critics on the inside, the fear, the negativity, the self doubt.
Yeah.
And I represent them with chickens.
Okay.
And so the whole idea is strategies to get those chickens out of you and fry them. Because once the chicken is fried, it's no longer a chicken that can bother you.
That's
In fact,
right.
It's delicious.
I was about to say it makes your problems more delicious.
Yes, exactly.
It sounds like a perfect recipe for KFC or Popeyes. But no, but it's so amazing when you think about it from that perspective. And I guess the one thing that stood out, so I had an opportunity to sit through the session, was your focus on this from a very personal way. And I love the way that you tied it into like relationship building and to at work.
Right.
So if you could elaborate a little more about how this applies maybe from a personal and a professional perspective, because I think people get those inner voices, the voices in your head. The one reference that comes to my mind, if you've ever seen the movie, it was Luca. And in the movie Luca, it's a Disney movie. He talks about the voice in his head that tells him he can't do things, and he calls it Bruno. And he always says Silenzio Bruno to say silence the voice. But it's just a powerful thing. And in this world where we're filled with so much negativity around us, tell me more about how this applies either in a personal or professional state. Give us an example.
So the example I used is the time I asked the lady who ultimately became my wife out on a first date. And everybody can relate to that. When you're younger, it's like, oh boy, I'm so scared to ask this person out. What if they make fun of me? What if they tell all their friends, can you believe this nerd asked me on a date? What if they have already friend zoned me? And those are all the voices inside, the fear, oh, she'll make fun of me, or the negativity. You're not good enough. She's out of your league, or the self-doubt. Remember that time you asked somebody out and they said no.
Yeah.
And so it's overcoming all of those because, and good morning, because you want to ask this person out, or whatever the end goal is. You have to be focused on that and silence all those inner critics.
That is so cool. And I think for some of us it's harder than others, right? But I know in an agile world, sometimes it's not even, and this is what's so incredible. So now applying it back to agile, to tie it back to the podcast, sometimes we hear differing opinions from different people. So we might have the business strategy people telling us, hey, we need to take things one way. We might have another voice in our head coming from the consumer saying, hey, we have to move in a completely different direction. And then the technology team says what you're trying to do is impossible, or it's something that can't be done. So you have all these competing chickens that are competing for telling you what can or can't be done. And I guess my big question for you, the biggest reason I wanted to talk to you, is what one piece of advice would you share with people who are maybe in an agile setting where they have the competing voices, they understand the premise of, okay, I don't want to let these voices, control who I am, but at the same time, they still have to deal with the ramifications of, that decision of where they're going to prioritize and what they're going to do. What advice do you give people as far as, is there a strategy or technique that they could use where they say, okay, I've got competing chickens. How do I know which chicken to address first?
And I think the advice is the chicken that can fire you, the chicken, right? The chicken.
Oh, so true.
It may, and that may not be the most important thing on the project, but if you can't influence upwards, and the chicken and that big chicken insists on you doing whatever the next thing is, then you have to do it. You at the end of the day, it's what's that hierarchy of needs or
Maslow's
Maslow's,
hierarchy,
yeah. So if they can, if the alternative to doing something is you're going to be fired and not have a job and starve to death, you probably want to prioritize that.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right. Right or wrong, that's reality.
No, you're right. So I guess that's the hard, and once again, that's wisdom, because that's often the hardest thing to tackle. The hardest thing to tackle is figuring out where to put the, which chicken to fry first. Right. And sometimes you think it's the biggest, most steroid based chicken, because that's the one you're going to enjoy the most eating. But other times but other times it's not, because maybe it's not the right chicken for the recipe.
Right. Exactly. That's a great analogy. I may steal that.
Yeah, go for it. No, it's just sometimes you need a Cornish hen, other times you need a turducken.
Exactly. It's a combination of who's asking for it, how quickly can it get done. Right? If you only got a little bit of time, you can fry a Cornish game hen.
There you go. So for the people in my audience who are going to nerd out because I'm talking to you, because I'm telling you that's going to happen. They're going to nerd out. They're going to think this is cool. What advice do you have for the people who are nerds, or what one thing would you tell them that they can do? And rest assured that there's still hope for all the nerds in the world. What piece of love do you have for them, so that they know, hey, even though I'm in this infested environment, what advice do you have for them that there's still hope for the nerds? There's still hope for the people who are project managers or business analysts, or what hope do you have for them? What piece of advice would you give?
I think, nerds have become more cool.
I agree.
They all of a sudden, people looked up and said, these nerds know a lot about technology that can do a lot of great things for us. Yeah. To the point where they probably are overwhelmed, right? And my piece of advice when it comes to frying chickens is fear the big red rooster of regret.
Yes.
So, and that's what moved me to ask for the date. That's what moved me in a lot of to keep auditioning for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I didn't want to have this huge regret that I coulda, shoulda, woulda. So if there is something that is just so inside of you that you have to have it, be afraid of not trying.
Love it.
And the quote I did in the keynote is, a lot of keynote speakers will say, what would you do if you could not fail? And my twist on that is, what would you do even if you thought you could fail? Because the fear of regret is so big and so powerful.
That is probably the most powerful positive advice I've ever heard. Okay, so now 2 shameless plugs. I want you to give a shameless plug for your book. Tell us about your book.
My book is Great Things Happen Every Day. It's available on Amazon. Quick link, philbarthbooks.com will take you right to the author page.
That's awesome. That's perfect. And last but not least, your son is in an incredible band. I got to hear it. So tell us, just quick shameless plug about your son's band, so we can get that out there.
Google Starless Cincinnati. They are a heavy metal band. They are just dropping their latest album, one song at a time. So Starless Cincinnati. There are multiple bands named Starless, but there's only one.
Cincinnati.
Starless Cincinnati heavy metal band.
Got it. No, they are incredible. And I had an opportunity to listen to them, and you guys know what kind of music I like. So these guys are rock stars. Phil, I can't thank you enough for being here today. You are awesome sauce. If you ever have a chance and you're out and about at a conference and you see Phil Barth's name pop up on a program, make sure you attend, because you need to be there. That's going to do it for this episode. I enjoyed having you, Phil.
Lee, thank you.
If you have a question regarding Agile or how it's going to be applied in the workplace, feel free to reach out to us. Learn more at agiledad.com. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.